Hello, hello, welcome. It's Ben in New York City, coming to you with part 10 of my mini album tutorial, and we're going to talk about the binding today. So basically, we've got all our pages done. I do things a little bit out of order from a lot of people. I do my pages first, then I do my binding, then I do my cover. I do the pages first so I can be totally unencumbered by the kind of cover that I've made. So if I've made a cover that's a certain amount wide, then I start making my pages, you're kind of locked into a certain number of pages or a certain width. This way I can kind of go how I want and then make a cover to fit whatever I've made. So I've got 5 pages here that we've ended up with. It's really 10. So just to kind of go through it, we have this, the swing tab that opens up that we did first. Oops. Then we have this, which is the pocket page that we made together. Then we have our waterfall. And on the back of it, I made this pocket page to go. I didn't make the photo mats to go inside these other pockets yet. I kind of wanted to wait until I was done with everything else and see what kind of paper I had left over before I started to do these. Then we have our Kathy Orta All Occasions style page here that flips open. And on the back, I made this double pocket. Then we have our bonus pocket page a la Kareen. And on the back, I just did a single pocket. And then we've got our triple flat page that was my last video. And then I made this double side pocket to go on the back of that. So that's what we have. You want to measure how thick this is because you want to make sure that whatever binding you make is going to accommodate this thickness. When I measured it, it ended up being about 1.5 inches or 1.75 inches thick. So if I, just want to make sure that whatever binding I make will accommodate that at least. Because if anything, it's going to end up being bigger when we end up putting all the embellishments and photo mats and everything in there. And you also want it to be big enough for whoever you give it to put stuff in there too. That's kind of the point. So we are going to use the stack the deck binding method. And I've written this out very accountant-like. I'm using variables. It's a little algebraic, but just bear with me. If it's a little too much, let me know maybe in the comments if it was a little hard to follow. But this is how I think of it when I'm making this up. So first of all, we need to know how wide between the pages. So in the binding, how much space do we want in between each page? Oftentimes people refer to this as the gusset, that space in between. Now, I generally do a 1/2 inch. And since we've got 5 pages, there's going to be 4 gussets. 4 times a 1/2 inch makes it 2 inches wide, which will be wide enough to accommodate this for sure. I really would never go smaller than a 1/2 inch. I've even done 5/8 in some albums. If your pages are super duper chunky, you might even want to go up to 3/4. And we're going to call that P. I'm doing this so you can apply whatever measurements you end up wanting to use here and, use these formulas to make your own. How wide of a flap do you want to adhere it? This is the, when you do your binding, you're going to end up with these little flaps that you glue the pages to, and you're going to basically be gluing them in here. So how wide do you want those little flaps? I generally do 3/4 inch. You can go as small as a 1/2. I guess you could do a whole inch, but yeah, and that's what we're going to call F. Now the length of this, the height of this, will be the height of the page minus 1/8 inch, because you want it, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so if my voice sounds scratchy, that is why. Basically, this is 8 inches tall, and the flap is going to have to slide in here, okay? So, you want to make sure that it's a little bit smaller than the actual height, because if it's exactly the same height, it won't fit great. So that's why I take an 1/8 inch off. So all of these are going to be 7 7/8 inch tall, and then we're going to apply these formulas to figure out how wide each piece needs to be. If you only have if you only have 4 pages, you'll only need to make 2 pieces. If you have 5 or 6 pages, you'll need to do 3 pieces. If you end up, let's say you've got 8 pages, I would make 2 4-page bindings. Just do 2 separate ones that only have 2 pieces. You don't want to get too wide with 1 piece. Excuse me. So our first piece is going to be 2F plus P. F is 3/4 of an inch, so that's 1.5 inches, plus P, which is 1/2 inch, so that's 2 inches. So down here I've got my first piece is 7 7/8 by 2 inches. The second piece is 2F plus 3P, so that means it's going to be 7 7/8 by 3 inches. And your third piece will be 2F plus 5P. Now, I kind of have to futz around a little bit with this to make this work. Stack the Deck is really designed for an even number of pages. We have 5, we have an odd number. So it's a little different for us because we're doing an odd number of pages. So on this, we will do 1F plus 4P. 4P is 2 inches and 1F is 3/4. So that's going to be 7 7/8 by 2 3/4. You're going to score at F on each short side, so that's 3/4 of an inch. And when I say score on each short side, what I mean is you're going to take your piece and you're going to line up the short side to the top of the scoreboard and score at 3/4 of an inch. Then I flip it around to the other short side, 3/4 of an inch. Okay? And here are my 3 pieces. This is the 7 7/8 by 2. This is 7 7/8 by 3. And this last one is 7 7/8 by 2 3/4. I forgot to write it on there, but you get the idea. So then once you score and fold, you kind of end up with this U-shaped piece. And your second piece will also be U-shaped. But bigger. So basically what we end up doing is gluing this smaller piece down inside the bigger piece, and you're just going to have these 4 flaps kind of wiggling out. Okay? Our last piece is only going to be scored on one side though. Okay, your third piece. You only want to score that on one side because we only need one more flap, right? And that will just get glued. You want the unflapped at the edge without the flap to come clean along. It's hard to see on the camera, but line up to the folded edge of the bigger piece, and that leaves you again a 1/2 inch with another flap. So when you glue this in here, it ends up making 5 pieces. So let's go ahead and start gluing. I think it'll be easier for you to see as I put it together. So I'm going to take this piece, and I do use wet glue for this. It is much easier to use score tape if you want to use score tape. Excuse me. It's come apart for me too much. I live at New York in the summer is very humid, and all of these things I had made with score tape in the winter just started to fall apart when it got really humid. So I'm going to apply my glue. I'm going to make sure I really have plenty. In between the 2 score lines, in this middle 1/2 inch. And we're going to put this down. We want to glue it down in the middle of this bigger piece. And you want to make sure that you're really doing it in the middle on both ends. Okay, so let me show that to you. Just fold these again and make sure. Got a little extra glue in there. That you want to make sure that, see how it's in the middle? You've got the same side, same width on either side of it, and you want to make sure it's that way on the other side too, because it's possible to have it right on one side and have the other side a little crooked. So that is how we do the first piece. And again, I'm just gonna really make sure this gets a good stick going, and then I'm gonna kind of clean up this excess glue. Okay, so this is 4 of our page flaps done right here. Now we're gonna take this last piece, and on this one, it's a little easier to apply the glue straight to the back of the piece we just made, okay? Excuse me. I was kind of waiting for this cold to die down before I filmed this, but it's just not going away, and I'm too antsy to let this sit much longer. I want to get this tutorial done. So I'm just... I know this is quick dry glue, so it dries so fast, it clogs up so fast. Okay, there we go. Lots of glue, I know, but it, you know, is worth it. So now I'm gonna stick this on here, and I want this unflapped edge to line up exactly with this side of this binding. So, excuse me. I'm gonna make sure it's good on both sides before I really stick it down. And again, before I really stick it down, I'm gonna check again. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm gonna fold all of these back up. Okay, so now I have a binding here with 5 page flaps. And I really should have done this, you know, before I went ahead and glued it all together. So I really hope this works. I'm gonna take a page and stick this flap in here and just make sure it fits. Yeah, so that's how it's gonna do. It's gonna just slide that in there. You're gonna glue it in there like that, and it's gonna fold on this hinge. Okay, so once it really starts to dry, you kind of want to just keep folding these back and forth, because this really needs to get a lot of kind of making sure that these really flip open and shut very easily, because this is going to be the entire basis of your pages opening and flipping. So again, you just keep doing this, and then we've got our binding. Okay, so this is ready to go, and now we're ready to make our cover. And the reason I do this before I make the cover is because once you kind of do this and calculate out the width, now I know how wide to make my spine. When I make the cover, I know that I need to make the spine wider than this so it can handle this big of a spine. Okay? So that is part 10, the binding. I'll come back later with part 11, the cover, and hopefully we'll be finishing this up soon. See you soon, and happy crafting.